Hello everybody, welcome to number 27. I'm Jack and today I'm going to be talking to you about this Honda Accord Type R. But there is a reason why I am doing this. This isn't just a standard road test. Oh, that Vtec urge is so addictive. So, why am I here today? Well, a while ago, I bought a Peugeot 106 Rally. I'd always wanted a Rally and I'd driven this particular car about 3 years ago and loved it. However, since then, it's had a few mods. So it's got a full sort of Scorpion exhaust. It's got some grippy tyres, track tyres, NS2Rs. It's had Bilstein B8s on it and a few other little bits, which on the whole actually really improve it if what you're after is a bit of a hooligan. But they have made it much more of a pain to drive day to day, and now realizing that it's just not going to be usable for that purpose, I started looking around for something else, and I thought, okay, well, I think a Peugeot 306 GTI 6 is the perfect car to replace it. Still fun, still has the brilliant chassis, but not quite as sort of difficult to run every day, a bit more civilized, and I've always wanted a GTI 6, so this is as good a time as any. However, one of my viewers, Paul, hello mate, who's been a long time viewer and is now a mate, sort of said, what about an Accord Type R? And this car had been in the back of my mind for ages. I'd always really liked these, but I'd just totally forgotten that they even existed. And I had thought about a Type R as well, like an Integra or something, but it's not going to be that much better, to be honest, than the 106 as a sort of daily car. They're still sort of a bit, sort of, you know, they're hooligan cars. They're great for a blat, but they're not the best when it comes to actual sort of day-to-day driving. Anyway, you mentioned the Accord and suddenly a little light went off in my head and I was like, oh, an Accord Type R. I've always wanted one of those. I've always liked one. So today, really, it's going to be a review of the Type R, but it's also just to see, do I like it enough to be a replacement for the 106? Or maybe is the 306 the car that would work better for me? Now, the Accord Type R, unsurprisingly, I'd forgotten about it, but it's not just me. I don't know why everyone goes bonkers about Type Rs, but not about this one. And I think it's because it's just a bit bigger and a bit heavier than the others, but really it has all the ingredients to shine. The 2.2 litre engine produces 210 horsepower. The Vtec kicks in really high, so I think it's a sort of 7,300 that it produces the peak horsepower. The Vtec only kicks in at 5.8. But it was a thoroughly reworked car, so it is lighter than the original. The chassis was strengthened. It's even got different wheel bearings, stronger wheel bearings or bigger wheel bearings. Obviously the stiffened suspension. It's got the titanium gear knob there. I love these sort of Honda gear knobs. They are so right. When some people make some just atrocities and the simplest of gear knobs is the best thing, then, you know, it's a really appealing car, I have to say. Some people think they look bland. I think my preferred colour would be red. If I can find one in red, I would absolutely love that. And I think it just sort of sets them off a little bit more. On top of that, the interior, this car has 142,000 miles. The interior looks like new. Part of the reason why I'm a bit iffy about the 306 is I know they just, you know, the seats disintegrate. They just don't feel great. And I thought, well, you know, Japanese cars, some people say they're soulless. I don't think so. But also, it has a decent interior, you know, it has something which is usable, which doesn't feel just, you know, which feels nice to the touch. And although these interiors have been criticised, I think it's pretty nice. Decent materials, well put together. So I'm just turning around here because what it's all about, really, is that Vtec engine. And I am just getting in this lorry's way, and then we will just go on the road and we will rev it all the way through and see what it feels like. So AC off, just make sure it doesn't drain the power. Incredibly, the Vtec Vtec only seems to kick in around 5.8, so really high up the rev range, and you have to keep it completely hammered for it to sort of be, it still drops out the Vtec, I think, but only just. And it doesn't feel like there's a massive amount of power coming through there. What does strike you straight away is how good the chassis is. This is just fabulous. It soaks up the bumps so well. It's really comfortable, but I mean, it's not about the comfort in itself that makes it so good. It's just that you can feel it working properly. It's absorbing those bumps and working with you. And the one thing that I do find a double-edged sword is, funnily enough, the engine. That's not because there's anything wrong with it. It's so addictive to put your foot down, and when it goes past 5 the Vtec kicks in, not like some of the later ones, which is really seamless. On this, it really kicks in and the car sort of jumps forward. But my own natural mechanical sympathy finds it quite difficult to keep a car sort of at about 6,000 revs consistently. That set of corners that I went through earlier, and basically in third you keep it at 6,000 and sort of move it around, and that's how it works. But I find it really hard to keep a car at those kinds of revs for like 30 seconds consistently. I know it's fine, I know this engine loves it, it's just a personal thing. I find that quite difficult. Having said that, this is a car which is going to be used every day as well, and unlike some of the other Vtec stuff and the S2000 that I drove that belongs to my mate JM, it does have a little bit of go underneath, so you don't have to be in that Vtec zone. It's sort of I would say it's pretty sprightly, even in the sort of lower revs. It's not quick, but it's not annoyingly flat in the lower revs. Now, I've just sort of stopped for a second because there was loads of traffic in front of me, and also it'll give us the opportunity to do another sort of pull, and there's some nice tight corners, so we'll see how it handles it. 1, 2, 3, go. This is the thing, right now it's around 6,000 revs. And that's kind of like where you have to keep it if you want to go quick. Now we're coming up to some corners here, some pretty tight corners. The brakes are excellent, they are really good, and I think that they are derived from the NSX. Second gear, tight corner, put your foot down, and there isn't a whiff of understeer. It is, it is really incredible. That sort of limited slip diff at the front just pulls you right through. It's a pretty capable thing. Now, the excellent ride, even on sort of country roads like this, you could be forgiven for thinking that it comes at a bit of a cost, because it's definitely less sharp than some of the other Type Rs. But I think, so when you chuck it around a bit, it does move around, but I don't think it's really that excessive, and I think that the level of movement is more down to the fact that you have quite an upright sort of driving position than anything to do with the way the chassis itself works. I mean, it could maybe feel like it could benefit from a tiny bit of extra damping, but then you would lose out on that sort of everyday comfort, and it is really very good as it is. It's very good. For a relatively big car, it's just like a real hooligan, but then I'm pretty sure I could live with it. At about 60 or 70, it's not particularly noisy. This one isn't even on particularly capable sort of tyres. I think that they are some off-brand things, and yet it is still that good. I am really, really impressed. One thing that I am going to say and criticise slightly is the steering. Now, it's better than a lot of the other Honda systems I've used in that you do know exactly what's going on, but it doesn't give you pleasure because it's just a little bit too lightly weighted, and I don't know, it's, although there's enough information coming through, but it's just, I don't know, it doesn't satisfy me, and it doesn't talk to me the way I would really like, and maybe even just a bit more weight would just make it feel a little bit better. It's just too light for me. That does make it feel quite agile, which is nice. And overall, it's only the one small criticism that I have. On the plus side, you have this amazing Momo wheel, which I think is also on quite a few Ferraris. And it's quite a refined car, really, all in all, because another Vtec pull. Oh, boom! The gearbox also is excellent. It's not amongst the best I've tried, but it's really, really good. So all in all, what to say? I really like it. I think it's really good. It's from an era where they made these cars, and they made sports saloons, and they don't even make them anymore, I think, really, because the things like the M3s, the Mercs, they've turned into totally different class. And the other stuff, the bread and butter sports saloons that you had from Ford and so on, they've turned into sort of MPV things. And these were nice, usable cars with a little bit of an edge, but not too ridiculous. Just brilliant. You don't even have to go mental with it, you know, to have fun with it. It's just great car, really like it. So could this be a replacement for Pepe, for my Peugeot? And the answer, I think, is a definite yes, it could. I'm going to drive a 306 again, just in case. I know one thing about the 306, so I'm going to have to weigh it up, and the steering is definitely better than on this. However, the engine on this eclipses it, the quality is better, so it's going to be a case of sort of picking which one is best. Thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you know of a good sort of Accord Type R which is for sale, please let me know, because I think I will be looking for one. Thank you so much for watching. Please do subscribe if you haven't already, and I really look forward to seeing you for the next one. And if you want to see a little bit more about this car, and specifically its owner, there is an excellent video by Johnny Smith, a car cave video, in which features his whole collection. I'll put a link to that in the video description. Thank you, and see you soon.